It was early 2025 in Chicago, Illinois, and the morning traffic on the busy intersection moved with the usual impatience of a city that never quite slows down. Cars jockeyed for position at the lights, horns punctuated conversations on cell phones, and pedestrians hurried along the crosswalks with coffees in hand. Then someone saw it. At first, nobody could identify what was standing frozen in the middle of the road. It was massive, the size of a small bear, and it wasn't moving. Cars began swerving, horns blaring in anger and confusion. A taxi nearly clipped it. A delivery truck locked its brakes and skidded sideways, missing the shape by inches. A woman in a gray sedan pulled to the shoulder and stepped out, waving her arms at oncoming traffic. "Stop! Stop!" she shouted. A police cruiser, alerted by the commotion, pulled up with lights flashing. The two officers approached cautiously, flashlights in hand despite the daylight. What they found made them stop in their tracks. It was a dog, or at least it had once been recognizable as one. The creature stood on four legs that could barely be seen beneath an enormous dragging mass of matted fur. The mats hung to the ground like a filthy, weighted cloak, soaked in something dark and foul-smelling. The dog's face was barely visible, just two frightened eyes peering out from a fortress of neglected hair. "My God," one of the officers whispered. The dog tried to move, but couldn't. Every step pulled painfully at the mats fused to its skin. It stood there, trembling, too exhausted and too burdened to flee. Someone in the gathering crowd said what everyone was thinking. "She looks like Snuffleupagus." The officers worked together to guide the dog off the road, moving slowly, speaking gently. She didn't resist. She couldn't. Once safely on the sidewalk, one officer called Chicago Animal Care and Control. "You need to send someone now," he said into the phone. "I've never seen anything like this." Within the hour, CACC had made their own call, to One Tail at a Time, a rescue organization known for taking on the most desperate cases. This, they knew, would be one of them. At the shelter, the examination room fell silent as the dog was brought in. The rescuers circled her slowly, cameras clicking, voices hushed. No one had ever seen this level of neglect. The matted fur wasn't just tangled, it was rock-hard, fused into slabs that pulled at her skin with every breath. The stench hit them before she even entered the room. Urine, feces, rot. A veterinarian knelt beside her and gently lifted one of the mats. The dog flinched. Beneath the fur, her skin was raw, infected, and stretched beyond recognition. "She can't walk properly," the vet said quietly. "She can't lie down. She can't even go to the bathroom without pain. This fur, it's been pulling on her for months, maybe years." They weighed the mats. The number was staggering, 32.4 pounds. That was more than the weight of a toddler, more than a full suitcase, more than most dogs carry in their entire body. And she had been dragging it everywhere she went. The breed was identified as Tibetan Mastiff, a noble ancient breed known for its thick double coat and loyal temperament. But there was nothing noble about what had been done to this dog. Her coat, meant to protect her from Himalayan winters, had become a prison. The veterinarian's diagnosis was grim, a full-body skin infection raging beneath the mats. The fur had blocked all airflow to her skin for what could have been months or years. Without treatment, she wouldn't survive. "We need to shave her," the vet said. "All of it, and she'll need to be sedated. There's no way she could tolerate this awake." Before they took her to surgery, they gave her a name. They called her Sprout, because beneath all that pain they believed something beautiful was waiting to grow. The grooming room at One Tail at a Time had seen its share of difficult cases. Matted strays, neglected seniors, dogs pulled from hoarding situations. But nothing had prepared them for Sprout. Allie, the lead groomer, scrubbed in like a surgeon. Clippers were laid out in rows. Towels were stacked high. The sedation was administered carefully, and Sprout's breathing slowed into the deep rhythm of unconsciousness. Then the work began. For hours, Allie moved with painstaking precision. The mats didn't come off in strips. They came off in slabs, heavy as wet concrete, falling to the floor with dull thuds. Each one revealed more damaged skin beneath, red, raw, weeping. "I had to keep reminding myself there was a dog under there," Allie said later. "It didn't feel real." The pile on the floor grew, 5 pounds, 10, 20. By the time the last mat fell away, the scale confirmed what everyone had suspected. 32.4 pounds of matted, soiled fur had been removed from a single dog. And underneath, a much smaller dog than anyone expected. Sprout, freed from her burden, looked almost fragile. Her skin was stretched and irritated, her body thin, but she was alive. And against all odds, her vital signs were stable. When the sedation wore off, Sprout lifted her head. She blinked. And then, slowly, she stood. For the first time in what may have been years, she walked without pain. No one in the room could hold back their tears. Allie sat on the floor beside her, stroking her newly bare skin, whispering words of comfort. Other staff members gathered in the doorway, wiping their eyes. Sprout didn't know what had happened. She didn't know that she had been saved. But she knew, perhaps for the first time in a long time, that she could move, that the weight was gone, that someone, finally, had helped her. It was the beginning of everything. Elisa had fostered dogs before, dozens of them over the years. Shy ones, sick ones, traumatized ones. But when Sprout arrived at her door, she realized this would be different. The dog stood at the threshold, motionless. She didn't wag her tail. She didn't sniff the air. She didn't even look up. She simply stood there, as if waiting for permission to exist. "Come on, sweetheart," Elisa coaxed gently. "It's okay. You're safe now." Sprout didn't move. It took Elisa 20 minutes to guide her inside. Every doorway was a challenge. Every room was a mystery. Sprout seemed terrified of walls, of floors, of the simple act of being indoors. Whatever life she had lived before, it hadn't included the basic comforts of a home. The first few days were heartbreaking. Sprout wouldn't eat. She barely drank. She stood in the corner of the living room, silent and still, watching the world as if she didn't belong in it. And then there were the stairs. Elisa's bedroom was on the second floor, and she wanted Sprout to sleep near her. But Sprout had never climbed stairs. She stood at the bottom, staring up at the steps, like they were an impossible mountain. So Elisa carried her. Every night she lifted Sprout's 50-pound body and carried her up. Every morning she carried her back down. It was exhausting, but Elisa didn't mind. This dog had spent her whole life carrying a burden. Now it was Elisa's turn. Because it was winter, and because Sprout's skin was bare and healing, Elisa dressed her in pajamas and onesies. Sprout didn't resist. She stood patiently, while Elisa buttoned her into soft flannel, her eyes still uncertain, but trusting, just a little. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The breakthrough came with a sock. Elisa had left a pair of fuzzy socks on the couch. Nothing special, just the kind you wear around the house on cold mornings. When she came back into the room, Sprout was lying beside them, one sock tucked under her chin. "Well," Elisa said softly, "I guess those are yours now." From that day on, socks became Sprout's treasure. She didn't chew them or destroy them. She collected them. She slept with them. She carried them from room to room like a child with a beloved stuffed animal. It was the first sign that somewhere inside this broken dog there was still a spirit that wanted to play, to love, to belong. Her appetite began to improve. She started eating full meals, then asking for treats. Her eyes, once dull and distant, began to brighten. Then came the guinea pigs. Elisa had 2 of them, small, squeaky, utterly defenseless. She wasn't sure how Sprout would react. Tibetan Mastiffs were bred to guard livestock, but they were also powerful dogs with strong instincts. She introduced them carefully, holding her breath. Sprout approached the cage slowly. She sniffed. The guinea pig squeaked, and then, to Elisa's amazement, Sprout lay down beside them and rested her head on her paws. She didn't bark. She didn't paw at the cage. She simply watched them, calm and gentle, like a guardian keeping watch. "You sweet girl," Elisa whispered. "You've got a good heart in there." The skin infection was healing. New fur was beginning to sprout, soft and clean and healthy. And with each passing day, Sprout seemed to trust the world a little more. She wasn't the same dog who had stood frozen in that intersection. She was becoming something new. Physical recovery was slow. Sprout's body had been so compromised by her ordeal that even basic movements were a challenge. Her legs, weakened from months of near immobility, trembled when she walked. Her gait was awkward, uncertain, like a foal finding its legs for the first time. The rehabilitation began with short walks around the house. Elisa would guide her through the hallway, one step at a time, praising every effort. "Good girl, that's it. You're doing so well." The stairs remained Sprout's greatest obstacle. Every time she approached them, she froze. The fear was visible in her eyes, the same fear she had shown on that first day. Elisa never pushed her. She simply sat on the bottom step and waited, patient as a saint. Days turned into weeks. Sprout would approach the stairs, sniff them, back away. Approach again, back away. It was a dance of courage and hesitation, repeated over and over. Then one afternoon, something shifted. Elisa was upstairs, and Sprout was at the bottom looking up. For a long moment, nothing happened. And then, with a determination that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her, Sprout lifted one paw and placed it on the first step. Then another. Then another. Elisa held her breath, tears streaming down her face as Sprout climbed every single step, slowly, carefully, triumphantly, until she reached the top. "You did it," Elisa whispered, pulling her into a hug. "You did it, baby?" The fur was growing back now, thick and healthy. The infections were gone, and Sprout, who had once been unable to take a single step without pain, was learning to move through the world like the dog she was always meant to be. The application stood out immediately. A family with Tibetan Mastiff experience, a large, secure yard, and most importantly, another Tibetan Mastiff already in the home, a male named Wally, who they said was gentle and good with other dogs. One tail at a time was cautious. Sprout had come so far, but she was still fragile in many ways. A bad match could set her back. The rescue team arranged a meeting, hearts hopeful but guarded. The day arrived. Sprout was brought to the family's home, her new fur coat fluffy and soft, her eyes alert but nervous. She stepped out of the car and stood very still, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. And then Wally appeared. He was enormous, a magnificent Tibetan Mastiff with a thick mane and calm, knowing eyes. He approached Sprout slowly, respectfully, the way one dignitary might approach another. For a moment, nothing happened. The two dogs stood face to face, sniffing, assessing. The humans held their breath. Then Sprout's tail moved, just a twitch at first, then a wag, then a full, joyful sweep. Wally bowed, the universal dog invitation to play. What happened next brought everyone to tears. Sprout ran. She ran like she had never run before, full speed, joyful, free. Wally chased her. She chased him back. They zoomed across the yard in great sweeping arcs, tongues flying, tails wagging, two magnificent dogs playing like puppies. "I've never seen her do that," Elisa said, wiping her eyes. "I've never seen her play." It was settled before anyone said a word. Sprout had found her family. She had found her brother. She had found her home. They call her Sprouty now. The name suits her, playful and affectionate, with just a hint of mischief. Because that's who she has become, a confident, joyful, thoroughly spoiled dog who knows exactly how loved she is. Her skin infections are fully healed. Her fur has grown back thick and luxurious, the deep black and tan of a healthy Tibetan Mastiff. She looks nothing like the creature who stood frozen in that Chicago intersection, burdened by 32 pounds of pain and neglect. She has a yard now where she runs with Wally every day. She has a bed, a real bed, soft and warm. She has a family who adores her, who brushes her coat, who takes her picture, who marvels daily at how far she has come. She still steals socks. Her family has learned to keep them hidden, but somehow she always finds them. It's become a joke, a quirk, one of the many little things that make Sprouty who she is. Sometimes her family looks at her and tries to imagine what her life was like before. They picture her alone, trapped, unable to move without agony. They think about the person who let her get that way, and they feel a flash of anger. But then Sprouty will look up at them with those big, trusting eyes, and the anger fades, because what matters now isn't where she came from. It's where she is, safe, healthy, home. There's a photograph that Sprouty's family keeps on their mantle. On one side is the image from the news coverage, that unrecognizable shape in the intersection, buried under a mountain of matted fur. On the other side is Sprouty today, magnificent and bright-eyed, lying in the sun with Wall-E by her side. The contrast is almost impossible to believe. But that's the thing about second chances. They don't erase the past. They redeem it. Sprout was found in traffic, barely alive, unable to move. Sprouty runs through her yard, plays with her brother, and sleeps in a warm bed every night. She was rescued. She was healed. She was loved, and that made all the difference.